Hey y'all, I'm continuing on with my design team project for Sunflowers and Dors using her new sunflower kit. I'm going to be using some Distress Oxide and Vintage Photo to age the edges of the journal cover that I showed. Hope everyone is doing well today. The weather outside has been beautiful where I'm at. I'm just going to lightly distress the edges just to add a little bit of color contrast and also cover up those white edges, as I was saying. I will be doing the outside edges as well. I did get all of the pages cut to fit inside of this journal, so I'm going to go ahead and show the construction and how I go about it in this video. If you are a beginner on your journaling journey with making journals, this video should be helpful for you. Here I have my pages ready and all cut to fit. And I'm just going to distress the edges of these pages as well, or age the edges with this ink. I don't always do this, but for this particular journal, I felt like they were just stark white. Sometimes I'm okay with that, sometimes I'm not. So when I do want to do the edges just rather quickly, this is how I do it. Okay, done with that. I did get a little bit of fluff off of my inker onto the page, so I'm just going to rub that in. It's fine. That's why we call them junk journals, right? So now I'm going to show how I put the holes into the pages and the cover. I use this old dictionary that I rescued from a local resale shop, and I keep all my templates in here, and I'll show you how I make my templates. I have a piece of paper that I cut off of another page, and I'm going to fold it and tear it to make it the length of my journal cover. Now I'm going to be using a 3-hole pamphlet stitch to sew in the signature for this journal. So I'm going to fold this piece in half and crease it. And where that crease is, that is where the center of my signature is going to be, the center hole for stitching. Now sometimes I use a 1-inch mark from the bottom and top. This time I'm going to use a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to measure a 1/2 inch on each end of this piece of paper and place a mark. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark the center so I can see it better. And place a mark on the other side. And that way I know where to poke the holes through the pages and through the cover. Okay, I'm going to bring my dictionary back in, open it up to the middle, and then put my cover in. Find my awl. Now this isn't a real awl, this is a cheater awl. I got this in the tools section of my local hardware store. Put my pages in and open my pages all the way up to the middle of the signature. And then I'm going to get the template that I made, place that, line it up with the journal cover. And then I'm going to take my awl and poke the holes where I have marked. And then you'll see that I pick up the whole thing and I double check that the holes that I put through the journal have gone all the way through and are wide enough for the string that I'm using to sew in the signature. Okay, now I have some lace weight yarn. It's cotton thread. It's also the thread you use to make doilies. Looks like this. I'm going to measure 3 lengths. And cut that off. This is the standard I'd use for doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch in a journal. If I'm going to do a 5-hole pamphlet stitch, I measure 4 lengths. I use a blunt end needle when I sew in my signatures because I poke the holes into my signatures ahead of time. This is actually a plastic canvas needle. And I'm just going to thread my yarn onto my needle. Now I'm going to start in the center of the signature on the inside and go towards the outside and make sure that I hold a length of thread on the bottom to tie later. Then I'm going to go to the top and go from the outside in. If the loose pages start driving you crazy, you can always paper clip them together to keep them from being loose. When I first started making journals, I used a lot of paper clips to hold things in place, or different kinds of clips to hold things in place while I was sewing these in. And I also keep all different kinds of like little pliers and tools and things because sometimes these signatures are really thick and you need a helper. Okay, now I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom and go out the back. And then go through the middle and back to the center. Okay, now I'm just going to cut, because a little piece of string on that needle helps me find it easier later. Now you want to make sure there's one string on one side and one string on the other side of that long piece of thread in the middle of your signature. And then you want to tighten it up, and you don't want it too tight. You just want it snug. And then I'm going to put a square knot in it. Sorry, I'm off camera a little bit here. Okay. And then I like to tie these into a bow. And you can add dangles or different charms or whatever off your strings later on. But when you're initially working on these journals, it's easier to have them out of the way and tied in a bow. And then you're going to, here's that folio that I had added in. You're going to want to flip through these pages and kind of crease them a little bit because they're not going to remain flat, like completely flat. This journal is going to widen up a little bit as you're working in it. Thanks for watching, y'all. Have a good evening.